Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And today, I thought we would talk a little bit about why diversity always makes horror a better place, and why Booktube has a diversity problem, I would say. So yes, a bit of a bigger topic, but also kind of meant to start a conversation. I'm not really going to say anything that are too definitive here because I think it's probably a conversation that everyone needs to have and chat about it and start a conversation rolling rather than just say definitives. But just the general idea is one, diversity always makes horror better. So, for example, I've recently two things that I've read and watched. I've been watching the 101 Scariest Moments, which is a series put on by Shudder, which is, of course, referencing an older, Bravo series back in the day. And they are doing their own version of that on Shudder. And one of the things that is so remarkable about that series is just this effortless diversity. And they have all of these very, very different people coming in to chat about what makes things scary. And I think it just makes a much better list than you normally get on sites and in most circles, because most circles is very white. It's kind of what happens. And this is amazing because it brings in people from all kinds of different cultures, walks of life, sexualities, and they all get together to talk about what is scary. And they're using the format of film to kind of chat about what is the most effective at scaring. And it just makes the entire list amazing. It really makes things a lot more interesting than most of these lists. And I just think that's amazing. And then I also recently read the Shadows anthology, so Shadows 2. And there are so many different writers that I discovered from really good old school anthologies. And then when you go to look up some of their history, especially some of the great writers, you find out, well, they didn't actually do too much, or they were mainly doing fantasy or anything like this. And then I've discovered gay and lesbian writers through this 70s horror anthology. And it's really kind of remarkable, just the amount of different people that are kind of put together and talking about doing horror. And it's always so good. When you get a really good anthology, you can almost guarantee a short story anthology, not a collection, right? A short story collection is just one person, but an anthology, what makes a good anthology is getting all of these different voices in, and a lot of times it's so good. It's so good. Some of those stories I read in Shadows is better than most horror that I've read in a very long time, and it's so remarkable. It kind of got me thinking about Booktube in general, and a lot of this has to do with a very specific Instagram story I saw. So I was hanging out on Instagram. As one does when you have time. And I was flipping through the Instagram stories, and one was by our lovely Plagued by Visions, and it had all of his information that says all of his there's a little card that says, oh, what are all your information, what do you do, blah 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 blah. And number one was his name. And that's when I discovered all of us have been mispronouncing his name, because it says Juan, not Juan. So we've all been saying Juan, but that's not how you say it. It's Juan. It's like a H. There's an H at the beginning. And it just got me thinking wow. It is so easy, and was extremely easy, for me to just watch a video about how to pronounce Juan and how to pronounce it properly. There's a bajillion on YouTube. But my dumbass, and I think probably this is everyone, I think the reality is I think all of us have been kind of collectively mispronouncing his name. We just didn't look it up, and we didn't have anyone properly pronouncing it in videos, because a lot of people in this corner of Booktube are white people, and we just saw someone else pronounce it as Juan, so that's what we do instead of pronouncing it properly, Juan. And it just blew my mind and made me feel very, very bad. I had a chat with Blake Byers. He was super chill about it, but I was I don't know how you're so chill about this, because this is, to me, it's oh my goodness, this is a wow, we all need to collectively do better. And I think that's probably where the best discussions will happen just after this about how can we be better? What can we do to, one, improve diversity on Booktube. What can we do to kind of like combat racism on Booktube? Because I think what happens is, and a lot of people don't see this, because YouTube has these like quote unquote like filters, where they will filter out ruder or more offensive comments that get made on your channel, but they will still notify you about them. So you still get notified that somebody has said a slur on your channel, but the comment disappears. And no one else sees that comment. There are racist comments that make it past these filters. And there are things that, like, most of Booktube, who, like, all of us white folks just don't get. Like, there was one where Juan was sharing a comment that he got that was basically saying that he couldn't talk about Southern Gothic literature because he's Mexican. And it's like, oof, that's a bad comment. Like, that's real bad. And that's not something I've ever gotten. And I have talked about American books and movies and politics, and my Canadian ass is definitely not. I know way less than most people do on that subject, but it's something that no one even questions you if you're a white person on a lot of these topics, and it is something where we need to kind of make sure that we are being kind of proactive to combat these things in our videos, in ensuring that if we see anything like that, we point it out. Like, I would say even in your own comments, like, I mean, go through your comments, or anyone being a little iffy in their comments, make sure you, like, address that. Is probably the first big thing, is to just recognize that there is a level of abuse and a level of, like, combativeness that people of color and people of different sexualities get on Booktube that you don't. Obviously, if you fit into one of those categories, you do. I'm talking to general white Booktube. And also what I think is something we probably need to do better at is just help promote new channels by people of color. So, for example, just off the top of my head, one of my new favorite Booktubers is Michelle's Melancholia, and she has just started. She only has like 150 subscribers, and we need to get that number up because she is great. She's one of my favorite Booktubers, and I just think keeping your eye out for new Booktubers in that regard, and supporting them, and making sure that we are kind of being like, hey, look at these cool YouTubers, and like inviting them in to talk about things, maybe do collaborations with them, and then kind of just, continue to encourage diversity in the community. I would say, have open lines of communications. Maybe that might help us a little bit. Like, have lines of communications where it's like, if somebody wants to do Booktube and they don't know how to do Booktube, like, you can just hit me up. Any of the services that I have, probably Instagram is the easiest place to just, like, if you want to talk to me and ask me. Someone did recently ask me, like, oh, how do you start a Booktube channel, blah, 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 any tips? And we had a good conversation, and I think that was great. And I think having open lines of communication will help with that a lot. And then the most important part is probably just listening to people of color. I would like to get more input from the community at large, and then also specifically people of color. What can we do to kind of encourage a continuation of diversity on Booktube and just getting better content for everybody? Because the bottom line is that diversity just makes everything better. Like, I don't know there's no other ifs, ands, or buts. I don't think you can argue it whatsoever. As a more diverse amount of people who are talking about books and talking about how their own experiences relate to books, well, one, leads you to books that you've never heard of before, leads you to perspectives you haven't heard of, and in general, it just improves everything. So I think that it's probably just, this is one of those videos where it's like, if you are thinking about doing a blah, 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 like a shitty comment, just know I will eviscerate you in the comments. So you probably shouldn't do it. And I just think it's inarguable. Booktube is very white. We probably need to change that. What's a good way to change that? And how do we encourage new people to come to the field and introduce ourselves to YouTube? And what can we do about some of these problems? So I think just, it's just a discussion. I would love to start this discussion going. Also, I just think I want to make a full-on, like, apology to Juan that we have all been mispronouncing your name and calling you Juan. That's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to play nice with us when we are mispronouncing your name, especially, after bringing us to all these amazing collaborations and doing all these like wonderful things for the Booktube community. Juan, I am sorry. And again, maybe I mispronounced it anytime during this video. Please just let me know. And I think, in general, pronunciation matters. Do the work. Look up pronunciation guides if you don't know. And if you don't know how to say something, don't try to say it half-assed. I think I've been guilty of this 1 or 2 times in the past, especially when I'm doing like a book haul. If you don't know how to say it, don't say it. Because you show the name, show the writer, don't butcher it. Because it matters. Pronunciation matters, and it's very important. And yeah, that's today's video. Read Shadows 2, subscribe to Plagued by Visions, subscribe to Michelle's Melancholia, watch Shudder's one-on-one Scariest Moments. Have a great day, and please, in the comment below, let's start this conversation going, and just have an open line of communication. And if I've done anything in the past, call me out. Always call me out. Half the time I'll probably do something without even realizing it. So yeah. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.